they seem to suggest that that was all good. Let me come back to you, Anindya, with the question that I had asked you before I interrupted you. If you could continue and answer that before the Prime Minister comes up to the stage and delivers his speech.
Yeah, so to continue, actually we were talking about the scale of the program, 400 million people, youth to be trained by 2022. So in order to do that, we have to ensure that we have the proper facilities, the faculty is there, course curriculum is aligned to what industry requires, so that the people who are trained are employable. So all of this, the ecosystem as such, the beginning has been made. We have NSDC, we have them funding various training centers and partners who have set up training centers across the country. Then they're not only using classroom training, but also using new technology, the ICT technology, in terms of virtual classrooms, studio classrooms, etc. So to reach out to the widest, to ensure widest possible reach across the country. So a lot of things are happening. The sector skill councils are there, so that they are the coordinators between industry and the skilling centers, so that the youth who comes out can be certified, the centers can be accredited, and of course the course curriculum is in line with what industry and the sector requires.
Okay.
And
Anindya, we'll continue this discussion. At this stage, let me welcome some other guests who are joining us from various locations on this Skill India mission discussion that we are having. P. Rajendran, ED and co-founder of NIIT, welcome to the show. We are also joined by Yagnesh Sangarkar, CFO of MT Educare, and again from Delhi, Raj Kumar Nehru, Associate Director of HR at Concentrix India. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. We already have Anindya Malik and Ajay Goel with us. Let me now go across to Mr. Rajendran. Mr. Rajendran, I spoke with a colleague of yours last week when Bloomberg TV India began programming on the Skill India mission and several aspects that we discussed. And at that stage, we were really talking about how July 15th as the World Youth Skill Day was an appropriate time when all of these schemes that have been in the work for quite some time are being unveiled together. We have heard some more commentary today, including from the Skills Minister, talking about various targets and the involvement of central ministries and agencies. We also had S. Ramodorai talk about the need to develop an ecosystem. If I could ask you at this stage to quickly underline a couple of the big ticket priorities that you feel are necessary to actually ensure implementation of what is clearly a very laudable objective. Mr. Rajendran, over to you.
So I will touch on things which probably not everybody is talking about, and give an emphasis on one part, which is technology. So we have for the skills initiative to succeed, we have to go all out across the country, and since we are talking about 400 million and 500 million people to be skilled up over the next many years, like till 2022, technology will play a great role. So on one side, we need the private people, the government people, the ministries, everybody to collaborate. But on the other side, I find, and I strongly believe, that we will have a dearth of good trainers. Now, I'm not talking about training in IT or training in a couple of things which we are doing, but there are a whole lot of service industry areas where it's necessary to have excellent trainers in order to get the skills up in the people who are receiving it. So one initiative I think the government must take, and it's very easy for them to take, is encourage every university, whether it is private or government, to invest in technology so that they can give online or VSAT based education training, skills training, using the using one expert but reach out to thousands and thousands of students across the country. And it should not be, the university should not restrict itself to the state to which it belongs, let's say state university or
Right.
private or central,
Right.
they must go out and go all the way, because 500 million is a big number.
Right, right.
And I
Mr.
sincerely
Rajendran,
believe that it is achievable.
good point. I'm stopping you here because I want to carry this specific point that you raised right now to another of our guests. Yagnesh, if I can come to you, the points that Mr. Rajendran mentioned, and clearly NIT has an old and long history as far as training is concerned in the technology space. The point that he made about the dearth of trainers, and I am tempted to ask you that, you know, largely in India, if a graduate degree virtually does not have value, it's only if you have a technical degree, and that too from the premium institutions, that you are considered qualified. We had Rajiv Pratap Rudy talk about how if there were matrimonial ads which said master chef or master plumber, and how that would give it social respectability. But the question that I want to ask you, in the age of Twitter, where 140 characters determine news, why is it, are we still stuck in the past as far as our curriculums are concerned? In other words, is 3 years really the time where you want to become a graduate? Because remember, the Delhi University wanted to extend it to 4 years, and there was a backlash from people and students. What can be done to change curriculums? And do you see any sign of that happening as far as the government establishment is concerned? Because remember, education at the higher level is a completely controlled and regulated sector.
Yeah, well, thanks that you asked me this question. You know, I completely, first of all, and by the way, thanks for having me on the show this afternoon. I would like to kind of supplement to what Mr. Rajendra just said. You know, technology intervention in all spheres have taken place to a large extent, but for education. So, you know, if you really see, technology has not really caught up with education as much as they should have been. That includes, of course, you know, curriculum changes as well to be delivered on the technology platform, which, you know, today at MT Educare we are doing. Now, we've also been seeing this because we are now working closely with various ministries of the government, both at the central and at the state level, to impart education projects, including skill development. In fact, while most of us are still talking about skill development, we've gone ahead and kind of already executed some projects with the NSDC under the Ministry of Minority Affairs, which also works very closely with the NMDFC. And why I'm mentioning this is because it's probably relevant for this particular discussion, that we've already started doing skill development training to various spheres. You know, a lot of beneficiaries who come from undergraduate kind of background, and they don't get graduated enough, and they need to be employed even before they become graduates. You know, these are the compulsions of the middle class or the lower strata of the society.
Right.
Now, this is very important so that they can get skill developed in such a way that before becoming a graduate, they can at least start earning their livelihood. Right? This is very important. While it is important, of course, to change curriculums, which we are working also together.
Right.
I mean, a lot of delivery of our coaching classes, we are working very closely with the education ministry, trying to see if how content can be developed in a digital form. You know, we have created products around that.
Right.
And we are in this industry for the last 25 years,
right,
as you would know. So we are working very closely with various ministries to make these training modules happen.
Okay.
And you know, when it comes to training, we have a very extensive kind of workshop training model,
right,
which kind of trains these trainers. So we are planning to do that same with the skill development opportunity as well.
Okay.
So we are already training almost like 10,000 beneficiaries right now as we speak under the skill development, under various skill areas like data entry operations, beauty and wellness. These are the areas which actually India will need going forward to make this dream happen really into a reality. Like,
okay.
As rightly said by
Raj
the
Nehru,
minister, we need to kind of
Yagnesh, hold on to that thought. Let me, Yagnesh, just hold on to that thought. Let me bring in another guest who's been patiently waiting to speak on this matter. Raj Nehru, as someone with a technology background and from the technology industry, who has hired lots and lots of people in the IT technology space, break it down and make it simple for us. This is a country which has millions of people coming out of school or graduate schools, even universities and even engineering colleges. Yet there are surveys which suggest that not more than 10% of all engineering graduates every year are able to find what you would call jobs that perhaps match up with at least the paper certificate that they have in terms of an engineering degree. Their salary levels at times are even lower than what someone who is just a plain graduate draws in the BPO space, for instance. What is the biggest challenge that you see as a practitioner and as someone who has hired and perhaps fired many hundreds of people? Raj Nehru.
Thank you, Siddharth, for asking me this question. See, we talked about the issue of people and their skills. And when we look at the industry today, there are many data points to indicate the challenge that we are facing. Every year, more than 5.5 million students graduate from the college. And if we look at the data, only 0.7 million are able to find job. And when we look at this, it gives you a very insightful information that the skills that are being taught in the colleges are not in alignment to the expectations and the demand of the business. So the skills that are being taught or the education that is being provided do not make them job ready in the market.
So why, Raj Nehru, why is it that the HRD ministry does not change or insist upon changes to the graduate curriculum? Why insist on courses, languages over 3 years which do not make that graduate market ready at all? Why can't that be done at the graduate level? Like I believe if people have stopped reading essays and are happy with Twitter, why not do it at the graduate level?
You are absolutely right, Siddharth, that today, I give an example. If today you have a graduate student going through a 3 years or a 4 years graduation in the college, if he is not provided an additional course in the last year or in the intermittent year before he completes his graduation, by the time he finishes the current state of graduation, he doesn't become eligible for any kind of opportunity in the market. Now today, employer has to hire him and then put him through a training. I'll give an example. Many of the industry, specifically in the IT, BAES domain, if you have to hire one person, you go through the interviewing more than 25 to 30 candidates, and the demand is so quick, the demand is so fast that if you are not able to fill that, it's a loss of revenue to the business. So it is important that in the college level today, that the skills that are being taught are industry aligned. Unless that is done, we may continue producing graduates, we may not be producing them job ready candidates.
Mr. Rajendran, you have heard various people on this panel express their views. I come back to you about the relevance of teaching and schooling, and I can tell you that we have had so many examples that one has heard and written about institutions like yours. People who came to you and paid a certain amount of time actually became immediately employable. It just strikes me as a paradox that the government sector continues to produce all these graduates who have nowhere to go, while institutions like yours are able to make people job ready within 1 year. Is that a paradox that this government is seized of? Do all these schemes and all these yojanas give you any sense that perhaps will get addressed, if not in 5 years, but perhaps over 10 years? Mr. Rajendran.
Yeah, so thanks. You know, I'm a born optimist, and I continue to be so. When we started NIT and when we decided, and we also came from IIT Delhi, we are engineers, etc. When we decided, after our understanding of our subjects, that you don't really need an engineer who has spent 4 years in mechanical, textile or whatever to become a programmer. So we innovated and said there are so many of the ordinary graduates, as somebody mentioned, who are going to the college and they don't know what they will do after that. So we said, why don't we create a dual qualification? They are going to college, they are maybe learning commerce or even English literature. On the side, if I can teach them, or they can come and learn technology hands-on with some internships and stuff like that. So when they graduate, they have the stamp of the university as a degree holder,
Right.
and they have a usable skill to get started. Now that worked, and I want to put it in context. When we said that, somebody mentioned that every company expects a person to come, would love to have a person who comes and starts working first day itself, because then he generates revenue day one. But I really want to ask, this is an ideal dream. When has it happened? So when I graduated in 74, 75, 76, the big jobs were graduate engineer trainees of Bharat Heavy Electricals or Larsen and Toubro or Tatas. So those institutions had a mechanism by which a one-year program is there, not necessarily because you are not skilled. So I'm an electrical engineer, I know that I can go and change wires and test a panel. But that's not what they want. They want an institutional person. They want me to be trained in different parts of their company, because they are building me up for a long career in the company. So that made the difference those days between the electrician and the engineer, because electrician has to be trained so that he can do today's job, get
Right.
started as the machines change.
Mr.
or as the
Rajendran, if I could,
requirements change.
that
So
prompts me to
I
ask
need
you
to-
another
no, I just
simplistic
need to-
question. Sir, that prompts me to ask you another
Yeah.
simplistic question, and please bear with me. On one hand, there are protests, and it becomes a political issue if the government were to raise the fee structure for a graduate degree from any college, whether it is mostly fully funded by the government. Yet students are willing to pay significant amount of money with institutions, including institutions like yours, to get tooled. Is there a disconnect at the level of the people themselves, at the level of parents and students themselves? They expect the government to give them a piece of paper, but then they are willing to pay money to companies, to private companies, to get training. Why is this a disconnect? Is this a valid point that I raise, sir?
Well, partly yes, because that's how you see it from outside. But look at IIT, that's also government. IIM, in a sense, it's government. And you're willing to pay whatever it takes. Now roll back, go to a class C or a class D town or a large panchayat. For the kids who have gone through the government schools, where education has been free, it's government's social responsibility to somehow get the kids into the school. Midday meal scheme is there. They are encouraged to learn. Some of them get into the university and learn and do PhDs. But many of them, when they come out, and we have been trying to mobilize them for skilling with our NSDC joint venture, what you find is that they find it difficult to think of why should I be paying 2,000, 5,000 rupees to get a skill, because all my life I have learned without paying. It's very difficult to switch them to believe that they need those skills. I'm not talking about the urban population, because they have to move very, very fast. So coming back to your question, you can go and ask sometimes an auto rickshaw wala, where would he ideally want to send his kids? And he will say, I want to send them to a private school. Now, somewhere some perceptions have happened that if you go to government schools, you don't get good learning, even if it is free. So
Right.
I don't mind paying more and go to a private school. I would tend to believe that it's wrong to generalize it.
Okay.
When I came out of school in 74, there were 3 people in the merit list who were from the government schools in
Right.
Delhi, and we used to hold in high esteem some named government schools as
Right.
the schools from where there will be competition in sports, there will be competition in debates.
Point
everything.
taken.
So I think that part, has it eroded, not eroded? Can I make a generalized statement? Definitely not.
Okay.
It is different in Tamil Nadu, it may be different in Delhi.
Okay.
But like I said, that government's this initiative fundamentally has brought skills into the main stage.
Okay. It's
We have
brought
over
the
30
skills.
years,
It's brought the
and
skill
I need
debate.
to complete this sentence.
Sure.
Let me complete this sentence.
Please, sir, go ahead.
Over last 30 years, as startups, we reached somewhere where we have probably trained about 35, 40 million, that's about 3.5, 4 crores. So, which is nothing, it's a drop in the ocean. So when the government says that we would like to do 500 million people in 2020, according to me, it's highly doable.
Okay.
And with the Prime Minister, today I thank the Prime Minister and I would like to show my gratitude of bringing the skills into the center stage. And now when the NGOs and the people who send kids to schools and colleges and the government machinery and the people who had to hire all these kids, they work in unison, there's no reason to believe that we will not be able to do, except government makes policy, rest of the people don't believe in what the government has done, then of course that divide will not ensure that we reach the targets.
Hopefully that's a divide that will reduce, if not go away completely. Good points there. Let me update our viewers on what is happening. There are awards that are being handed out by the Prime Minister. He is now going back to take his seat on the dais, perhaps about to speak, unless there are more specific programs that are coming up. We can see some other promo material running there. I just noticed a World Skill Council. So while we wait for the Prime Minister to come back, let me go back to Raj Nehru. He had a point to make, and I would also request all our other guests, if they want to come in as we open up the floor to further discuss this point. First to you, Raj, then to my other guests. Make your point quickly, please.
Yeah, thank you. So Siddharth, see, every year this country is hiring more than 12.5 million people, and the latest data I was looking at is only 1/3 of the students who qualify for job, who get into the job market, qualify the employment skills which are set by the employers, which is also indicating that the kind of education they pass through when they come out of the college is not aligned with what today employers are expecting. So we have age-old curriculum which needs to have a revamp. The second thing is the challenge that today this government has to handle, and I'm sure they are working on that, is the available of credible data. Today, if you look at the effectiveness, whatever programs are being offered and how they are impacting and resulting into the outcome in the form of employment to the students who are going to the skilling, we don't have that credible data. Whatever data you have, it indicates even the people who are completing those skilling programs, they are not getting. Like this year, I was looking at the skill target that government had kept for itself was around some 10.5 million students to be trained, out of which only some 7 million they had, 7.5 million they have trained, but only 2.5 million have got the employment in the country.
Okay.
So this alignment and then the availability of right information data, this is very important for government to know whether these programs, whatever changes they are making, are they effectively being leveraged in the system. So
Right.
I think this is another area that government has to look besides digitization and reaching to villages.
Oh, okay. Yagnesh, you wanted to make a point very quickly, please, because I can see the Finance Minister also about to start speaking. Yagnesh.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I just wanted to mention about certain things that are already happening. It's not that the skill development is a new area. A lot of good work is happening right now. So, for example, under the Ministry of Minority Affairs, there's an academy called Maulana Azad National Academy of Skills, which is Manas. They are doing some wonderful work on skill development.
Okay.
We are working very closely with that academy as well.
Okay.
So, I mean, I take that point from all the speakers that it's a big area and we need to really start executing.
Hold on,
some
Yagnesh,
work.
let's cut across to what the Finance Minister is saying.
Been a witness to many such opportunities which we are creating for India.
Let's turn back to the subject at hand. This is Mission Skill India that we have been discussing, a whole galaxy of experts. With me here, P. Rajendran, Executive Director and Co-founder of NIIT, Yagnesh Sangarkar, CFO, MT Educare, Shantanu Prakash, CMD of Educom Solutions, also joining us on the phone line from Chennai. Mahesh Bhangria, Vice President of Career Point, Amitava Ghosh, President of Evron Skill Development, Anindya Malik, Senior Director at Deloitte India, Ajay Goyal, Executive Vice President for Skill Development at Wadhwani Foundations, Raj Nehru, Associate Director HR at Concentrix India. Gentlemen, you have heard the Prime Minister speak, and before him it was the Finance Minister. Several points made. I'm going to come to each of you one by one for very quick first comments. Coming to you first, Mr. Rajendran, from what you heard from the Prime Minister.
As you could see that he was making a lot of points on the ground, rooted, common sense. But I think what he has gone is gone beyond institutions, gone beyond classrooms, and speaking from the point of view of the person who is become an adolescent and he now needs self-reliance. So self-reliance means having a skill, having something so that he can do something, not necessarily get a job. He can do it by himself, so he brought in the entrepreneurship. So my takeaway was how he nicely stitched this self-reliance, the skill, entrepreneurship, livelihood, and energy, re-energizing the nation. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. One point specifically which he made, I think, was the whole issue of value addition. By saying that a skill does not mean that you become a driver, you become a plumber, and you are doing that for the rest of your life. You can do that, you pick up a few other things. It starts adding value to your you as a professional, and expands your horizon in terms of the kind of work which you can do, and also your economic status, earning, and obviously it feeds into your aspiration for the future. I also saw that what I would now call as the LSB for LJ, which means local skills development, local skills which are required for local jobs. I think that's a very, very important thing. And there are a few other points, but the last one was that skilling has to be dynamic, and that is an issue. I mean, we just talked in the earlier session of how we have to be industry relevant. It's not just a question of being industry relevant. It is just that technology is changing. Now, when I use the word technology, it's not IT. It's about technology, whether it's food processing, whether it is a way you make a flower bouquet or whatever. And it's changing. You've got to track that. You have to look at best practices. And somewhere, a very, very key thing is the digital India part, which is accessing internet, finding out what other people are doing at which are other parts of the world, other states, picking up ideas, applying it, and making something for yourself locally. I think it's brilliant, this Make in India, Digital India, and Skill India coming together.
Okay, Make in India, Digital India, and Skill India coming together. That's what P. Rajendran makes of what the Prime Minister had to say. I have several guests with me, and some of them who have just now joined us after the Prime Minister's speech. Let me go across to Amitava Ghosh for his first reaction on what the Prime Minister said. Apart from the points that Mr. Rajendran made, any notable newer elements that you noticed and which enthused you about the direction that the government is taking as far as Skilling India is concerned?
I think the direction which government is taking right now, for which I would like to congratulate from the industry, is creating prosperity of every individual in India through this program. So that's one is inclusive growth. And since government is collaborating with all of us and giving us a platform across industry, that's a huge convergence I can see. And I think, this communication which is happening, that we are bringing skills to where it was needed, because if India had become an IT superpower, again it can become the skill capital. So a huge amount of momentum in communication, that is what I can see. I think that's something which I must congratulate the current leadership. And the way we have seen how from 20 ministries, now we are focusing on and converging into one particular department which is going to play a leading role to take this forward. That gives us a lot of clarity. It's not only inspirational, it is going to provide a very clear roadmap, and it's path-breaking in this country.
Okay. Shantanu Prakash, if I can come to you, and I'm sure that you must have heard what the Prime Minister had to say. The fact is that when this mission was first spoken about by the Prime Minister, it was spread across across 20 different entities, as our guests have been pointing out. You now have one skills development ministry. Purely in terms of execution, considering your experience in this sector, what is it that you would have looked forward to hear from the government today that you found missing, if at all, from the entire show that just concluded?
Firstly, I couldn't really look at something that was probably missing. I think the Prime Minister painted a really big picture. His vision is truly commendable. And, he mentioned about the fact that India can become the human resource capital of the world. And I think that is such a big statement. But as you said, it really depends on how the ministry is able to galvanize the private sector, the civil society, to making sure that this actually happens. End of the day, the proof is and the magic is in the execution. But in our interactions with the ministry, we found that the approach is extremely proactive, A. B, it is out of the box. And C, it is very accepting that we need to also rethink our traditional models of how we have been doing the execution so far. So I see a lot of openness in terms of new ideas of public-private partnership, new ideas of how to make the execution viable for every entity that is part of the skill development ecosystem. And I think that is something that was missing earlier, because somewhere in, if you look back, a couple of years, why this never took off was because somewhere the whole notion of doing skill development was missing the fact that where is bridge capital going to come from. A lot of companies that tried to do this work could not succeed because they thought it was not financially viable end of the day. I think a lot of those impediments have been removed right now.
Right.
So I'm very hopeful that the execution will take off like never.
Okay, Mahesh Bangaria, who joins us from what I would like to call the training and skilling capital of India, in some ways, Kota. Mahesh, the point really is that despite all the over-regulation or the lack of regulation, the lack of government attention, the lack of government finances, the private sector in India has been ahead of the curve overall when it comes to non-formal education, if that is the right way to describe it. You see this mushrooming of institutes all over the country. You see dozens and dozens of engineering colleges, and they all grapple with multiple authorities, multiple regulators. The end result and the end effort is to connect students with jobs. And that is what the Prime Minister seemed to focus upon. The fact is that the economy isn't growing to the expectations that many people would have expected. Therefore, this entire workforce that is going to get skilled, the need for industry linkages, do you really expect that there will be a major turnaround as far as industry linkages is concerned? Because that has been one of the weakest points as far as this sector is concerned.
Absolutely, you are absolutely right in saying that it was a long pending requirement. We have been criticizing the employability gap which has been creating what academia are producing versus what industries are required. So this skill mission is answer to that. It's yes, of course it would be more focused towards the entry level jobs for the unemployed youth, or maybe the youth who are into the employment but do not have the sound or good academic credentials to back up their career progression. So yes, skill development mission would give him a boost to their career progression, A. B, it will also help many youth who have been left the education system because of some reason, so they can come back to the education system because of their skills which are now assessed and certified by the government. So this certification of the prior learning of the skills which they have learned while they were out of education system, it will help the youth to come back to the education system at higher level.
Okay.
So it will help them two-way, one into the vertical or the horizontal movement into the existing career progression. Second, to take in the career progression through additional education qualification.
Okay. Good points that you make, especially on the certification issue. We are in the last 10 minutes of our program. I have 4 other guests who have been with us, and I'll come to them one by one. If I could come to you first, Raj Nehru, on the point of certification that was just mentioned by Mahesh. Do you think a situation has reached or will reach as a consequence of all these certification programs where private industry will value these certificates perhaps if not more than the basic educational degree and qualification, but at least at par with that? Would you, for instance, be willing to hire people who have certification from these councils going forward? Will there be a change in the mindset of employers as far as this effort is concerned?
Yeah, thanks Siddharth for raising these questions, but before that I would want to really congratulate Narendra Modi for giving a very different perspective to the skilling, traditionally the way we have been looking at skilling. He has actually given a complete whole different perspective to it, and when he talked about the complete human life cycle and he added words like kaun reh jate hain, and he added words like garib ki taqat we have to leverage. I think they are very insightful statement, and specifically at the end when he used the term which is a demographic dividend. It is clearly indicating that Narendra Modi understands that 90% of country's labor population is in unorganized sector, and given that 90% of population has a huge impact if it is skilled and taken up, it has a huge impact on the GDP. So I think what Narendra Modi is trying to do is trying to reduce the dependence factor in the country. And when I say dependence factor, he is trying to reduce the number of dependent members in the family versus number of working members in the family,
right,
which is very critical for improving the GDP of the nation. So I think it's a very important piece. As far as certification is concerned, today National Skill Development Council and National Skill Development Corporation, they are focusing on sector skills, and most of these sector skills are being designed after consulting the industry. This is the new development that has happened in very recent past, and I think all these courses that are being designed are designed after consulting and finding out what is critical to industry.
Right.
If these courses are offered in line with what is the pedagogy is rightly offered, I think industry will definitely benefit out of it.
Okay, Raj Nehru, hold on to that thought because I have to go back to reading some breaking news off the screen. Janet Yellen saying the pace of tightening that a rate rise at some point this year likely appropriate. Let me repeat and ask my producers to keep that flash, that breaking news element on air. Janet Yellen saying, and this is very significant news, a rate rise at some point this year likely appropriate. These are comments coming in which have come in after market hours. A rate rise at some point this year likely appropriate. This is breaking news on Bloomberg TV India. Clearly a very, very important statement that will be watched and across the world, and not just in India, that interest rate hike at some point this year, and obviously when it's the US, this is a reference to a calendar year, is likely appropriate. We will try and get some expert comments on this breaking news, but let me very, very quickly request the other remaining panelists who haven't gotten the opportunity to summarize what the Prime Minister said, Ajay Goel, Anindya Malik and Yagnesh, very quickly for their individual comments on what the Prime Minister said. I'm going to come to you, Mr. Goel, first, and then to Anindya, and wrap it up with Yagnesh. Ajay, very quickly, if you could wrap up your thoughts in the next 30 seconds, please.
Yes, the 2 points which I would take away is, one is he mentioned do an IIT on ITIs. I think that's a phenomenal opportunity for India. Of course, it's a humongous task, doing an IIT on the ITIs, 12,000 ITIs, and which the ministry can really focus on. The second thing which he said was about mapping the requirements. One is in the global scenario across different countries, and training and skilling people in India to take up those jobs over the next few decades. And second is a local connect, which is absolutely important. It's not about doing a macro level planning at the country, which we need to do that, but at a local level one needs to empower and make our institutions autonomous. For example, ITIs, they need to get much more autonomy, whether it's in terms of recruitment of teachers. It can't be done at the state, an IAS officer sitting at the state capital. It has to be done at the local level, whether it's the curriculum alignment, the industry partnerships. I think those are two very significant takeaways for me.
Okay, Anandya, very quickly for your comments, please.
Yeah, very well thought out policy, and it does address the issue of making skills a career option, which earlier was a cultural and societal issue. Also good concepts like recognition of prior learning, labor market information system, where we talked about ensuring that the local training centers also match up with what local industry requires. He gave the example of a chemical plant, but the courses were of automobiles. And I think this will lead to both skill universities and community college concepts coming in.
Okay, Yagnesh, for your final comments now on this show before we wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Siddharth. The visionary that he is, I mean, we hardly capable of commenting on his kind of legendary direction and the vision that he has given. I'll just take 2 points here. One is obviously the entrepreneurship angle, and to that I would just like to add the financing angle. I think after getting skilled, the basic hurdle that somebody has who doesn't get employed at that level also is finance. Now that I think, I mean, we are already working with NMDFC, the ministry, which also has plans of funding the certified workers who get skilled and get finances to start their own business, meaning the self-help groups and the self-entrepreneur groups. I mean, that is something that will take off actually from where the training ends. That is one important point. Okay. And secondly, also the women aspect, even like we are involved in a pilot project of the women leadership program, that also as part of the skill development should take off. I mean, that's something that we are focusing on as a company here. But yeah, I mean, all is in good direction. I think they should take the country much ahead. So, I mean, all the best to everyone who's involved in it.
And a big thank you to all of you for sparing your considerable time today to discuss what the Prime Minister had to say on Skilling India. Thank you so much. And that wraps up our coverage of the Skill India mission. But there's breaking news on the screen. Janet Yellen, the Federal Reserve Chair, has said that the prospects for the US economy, and I'm reading from this story,